and that's about it, okay? He is much younger and better looking also. Anyway, we're excited to be here. Here's why. We get to talk about our passion. We eat, sleep, breathe, dream large multifamily properties. We have a massive portfolio, and I really hope that's why you're here today. I usually have one of my associates pop up here, introduce the day, myself, give a rundown in the morning. I'm going to save that time here today. This is our last class of the week. I just want to jump up here, say hi, and just get started. I do, though, have one quick favor I have to ask. It is super simple. Here it is. If you have a cell phone, if you could just take a second, put it on mute or vibrate. I realize we're all very busy individuals, but if you leave them on, it becomes an ugly battle of the bad ringtone contest. And there's a lot of bad ringtones in the world. Your neighbor's going to love you for this. I will love you for this. It is the only favor I'm going to ask here on this nice Saturday morning. So with that favor out of the way, let's go over the itinerary today, what we're going to cover. We're going to spend about 80, maybe 90 minutes here today. I'm going to keep this pretty brief, covering 3 specific ways to make money with larger multifamily properties. If you come across any questions here this morning, feel free to ask away. We have a huge portfolio. This is all we do day in, day out. Or if you're more comfortable, you can jot your questions down, save for the end. Whatever works for you today, it's going to work for me. I'll keep this casual. Let me figure out the hand I've been dealt, kind of see what I have to cover. Where I have to start, I'm going to ask some questions. First question, how many of you in this room currently invest in multifamily properties? Can I see by the show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to start over here. Brandy, how many doors or units do you have? Do you mind me asking? That's okay. 2, a duplex. Okay, that's a good start. Hey, it's a start. How many doors or units do you have?
Not right now, but I had
12. Okay, was it one building or a collection?
collection.
Okay, different buildings. I saw some hands over here. How many doors or units do you have? 2, same thing, good start. And then I saw some hands back in the corner. How many doors or units? 8. Okay, is it 4plexes, duplexes?
2 4plexes.
Perfect, good start. Anybody else? How many doors or units?
11 units.
And 1 duplex. Okay, so this is a good start. I have some investors. I know I missed a couple of you. There's some investors in here, but I have a lot of beginners. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start down here. We'll cover some basics, and we'll just gradually ramp up as we get going. But also, let me ask this. Have any of you invested in single-family homes in your past? Maybe done a flip or something like that? Can I see by the show of hands? Quite a few of you. For 20 plus years, I focused heavily on single-family homes. Ever since I've been introduced to multifamily properties, I do not touch single-family homes. And we'll get into the reasoning why here in just a little bit. So let's start with this. Tyler's whole mantra is to think bigger. So every once in a while, throughout today's class, I'm going to say, jot this down, write this down. They should write in pens and pads to help for everybody in this room. Let's start with writing this in your notes, if you would, real quick. Today, we're going to focus on at least 40 units or doors and above. I'm not going to really talk about duplexes or 4plexes or even 10plexes. You're going to hear me talk about 40-unit properties, 50-unit, 100-unit, 500-unit properties. And I don't want to blow you out of the water in the first 5 minutes. But we feel it is just as much work and more risk to you on the single-family duplex, 4plex side over these larger apartment complexes. So we're going to spend 80, maybe 90 minutes, depending on how many questions I get, covering 3 ways to make money with these properties. Also today, I usually cover a little bit about myself, what I've done over the years, but here's what I found out. How many of you in this room could really give a rat's ass who I am and where I'm from? Can I see by the show of hands? There's my people. We won't cover that at all. Here's what we will cover. Our company, our portfolio. I'm a big part of this. Our strategies, that's what we will cover. But what Tyler really wants to know is more about you. Who are you and why are you here today? Now, I could do something really easy and just put us all into one category by asking something like this. How many of you are in this room here today because basically from the day you were born, you're looking for ways to make more money? Can I see by the show of hands? Okay, that's easy. We're all in that category. But you do realize there's always something behind the money. Yes? Boy, there better be. Whether it's your time, that's my biggest one, security, lifestyle, retirement. I heard on that video that played before I got up here, generational wealth from about 3 or 4 individuals. There's always something behind the money. You would know what that answer is above anybody else. Tyler loves to know what that is. I'm not going to cover that a lot here today. But one of the biggest topics we will cover here on this Saturday morning is this topic right here. Understanding the power of value add. In fact, I'd like everybody to write this in your notes if you would real quick. Every property we invest in must have value add. And all that means, in a very basic nutshell, is this. We target existing properties. We do not go after new builds or new construction. If you want to learn new builds and new construction, we can definitely teach you that. What we do is we target existing properties that are underperforming. Now, when I say underperforming, small little things, like maybe they have lower occupancy, maybe they have some higher expenses we can lower quickly, maybe they're not charging current market rents. And we fix those small underperforming issues and we force value or equity into these properties. Now, when I truly cover this here this morning, I'll do it in the latter part of my class. For some of you in this room as an investor, this will be a light bulb moment for you like you've never had in your entire investment career. It is by far and away the most exciting part of multifamily investing. In fact, let me word it this way. It's the quickest way to true wealth in real estate, period end. We select certain properties, we fix small problems, we force them to go up in value. Buckle up, it'll flat out blow you away. Most exciting part of multifamily investing. And then also today, let's briefly talk about the market and what's happening in real estate right now. Okay, real estate is cyclical. And all that means is this, the market's gonna go up and the market's gonna go where? Down. And right now in that big cycle, where are we currently at? We're up and leaning where? We're on a cliff, okay. We're hanging on this ledge. And we're on this cliff, and here's why. Interest rates are very high right now, yes? 20 some odd year highs. And everybody's sitting on a very low rate, and so nobody wants to move anything. And the market's literally just hanging here like this. Yep. All the indicators are, at any time, we could literally just go like this. And it's directly tied to the economy, cost of living, inflation, and what's happening right now. So we hear this all the time. Are we in a recession or are we not in a recession? What's the answer? Recession. I always get like 4 different answers on that. If we're not, we're hanging on a ledge, yes? They're calling it the silent recession. We're on a cliff. Anytime we go either, well, all the signs are pointing to it anytime. We're about to go like this. When you see things like large corporations announcing layoffs, Tesla, UPS, and a bunch of others over the last quarter, others are about to announce they're coming in the next little while. You see things like the decline of the dollar. These are all indicators. At any time, we could literally just go like this. But here's my question. If we are in a recession or about to enter a recession, is that good news or is it bad news?
Both. It's both.
For multifamily investors, it's great news, and here's why. When you own multifamily properties, you own a commodity. Okay, let's go back in time. 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. Does everybody vividly remember that time period? I have a lot of young people in here. Okay, 2008, 2009, the economy, real estate, basically everything overnight just crashed, pricing way down here. But at that same time period all across this country, even though pricing crashed down here, rent stayed right here, and in some markets, guess what rent actually did? It went up a little bit, and here's why. A lot of people lost their house to foreclosure back then, yes? 6 million Americans. They needed somewhere to live. When you own multifamily properties, you own a commodity. Let me ask this. Will there always be renters in this country, yes or no? Yes. Interest rates could drop to a big fat whopping 0 tomorrow. There will still be renters in this country. So when people ask me, are we in a recession, are we not in a recession? Here's my honest answer. I could really care less. Because in a great market, we make great money. In a down market, it even gets better. There will be another wave of foreclosures in the future. You do realize that, yes? They're starting to spike right now. Everybody's locked into 6.5%, 7.5%, 8.5% rates right before Christmas last year, barely qualifying on their DTI, buying overvalued properties. There will be another wave of foreclosures. Investors right now, they're searching for places to put their money. The stock market every week is either up at highs, down lows, somewhere sideways. Everything's completely unpredictable right now. Crypto hasn't been where it's at, even though it's trying to make a little comeback. And then also single family homes. Anything that's based on comps, if the market crashes, the pricing's gonna crash. They're searching for a place to put their money. If you were to Google multifamily investing, it basically confirms it's recession proof. This is where money wants to be. There will always be renters. Now, inflation has definitely gone up over the last 3+ years. Has rent gone up with inflation, yes or no? 19% is the nationwide average. When rent increases almost 20% in just a little over 3 years, do you realize how much value that is forcing into these properties? When I show you how we gauge the value of one of these larger properties, it's all NOI based, income performance based. That's a huge value add right there, 20% raise in rent. So once again, people ask me, recession, not recession? Honest answer is I could care less. How many of you in this room would love to give the metaphorical middle finger to the US economy? Can I see by the show of hands? It's exactly what multifamily investing allows you to do. When we hit that recession, I didn't say if, when we hit that recession, pricing will get better, cap rates will go up, more availability, foreclosures will spike, influx of renters, that's your customer. I don't know if anybody's tracked this. There's a ton of commercial loans coming due this year on a 5-year arm. People 5 years ago were buying large multifamily properties, banking that rates would be lower in 5 years on that arm, and what have rates done? So they're looking to cash those. Let me just be upfront. The timing right now for us, this period of time, could be better than right now. And then also this morning, we're going to cover continuing education and taking multifamily investing to a whole different level, our level. Here's the reality. I have 90 minutes here today to cover a ton of content. Our company trains and focuses heavily on 6 steps. These 6 steps. We train on these 6 steps because these are the steps you need to take to go out there and actually invest in these larger properties. But the reality is this, there's not one human being on planet Earth in 90 minutes on a Saturday morning that can teach you everything you know how to make money on these large properties. That'd be impossible. What you're truly attending today is just an introduction. That's it. To our company, Tyler Devereaux, our strategies, what we do in the market, but more importantly, it is an introduction to something we have that is much bigger to come. This something bigger to come, I'd like everybody to write down in their notes. It's why Tyler invited you here today. It's why I'm here today. It's why my associates are here today. This something bigger to come, write this in your notes, is a 3-day multifamily training / networking event Tyler and Multifamily Mindset will be holding here in the area. I'll give you the location in a second. The dates are up here on the screen. Write these dates down if you would real quick. This event is held May 30th, 31st, and June 1st. That's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Each day of this event begins at 8:30 a.m. and gets done at 6 p.m. And they are 3 completely separate days. Training, networking, focusing on one thing. Larger multifamily properties and building portfolios. The ultimate goal coming out of this event for us and our students is to actually invest in these properties, sponsor your deals, partner on deals. That's why we're in this room here today. Now, whenever I bring up dates, inevitably I'll have someone say, Steve, you couldn't have picked worse 3 days. I'm out of town, vacation, and whatnot. If that's the case, don't worry about that. We have plenty of other options. But also let me cover this, because it's always the elephant in the room. I'm going to read your mind. I'm a really good mind reader. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. You got invited here today by Tyler Devereaux via social media in some way, shape, or form. Yes? Something intrigued you about multifamily investing. It's the hottest business on the planet. His energy is incredible. So you came down here today. As you were coming down here today, here's what was going through your head. Let me see if I can get this one right. Okay. I wonder what they're going to try to sell us today.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many of you walked through that door here today thinking we're here trying to sell you something? Can I see by the show of hands? Okay. I will not let you down. Did everybody hear that? We are a company. You should have known that before coming down here today. Our company is in this room here today for one reason only. That's to make money with large multifamily properties. We have a massive portfolio. We feel that some of you, and I'll say that lightly, are in this room for the exact same reason. Tyler is a big believer in a win-win philosophy. He truly believes your success brings us success. This is a big relationship-based business, is what it truly is, and I'll prove that here today. But I have to throw this out there right up front. There is an investment, attend our event, have access to all of our training, our sponsorship on your deals, our partnership and everything we do in the market. But I'm gonna do something totally different right now. I'm literally gonna fly by the seat of my pants right here. If you've ever attended any type of class like this in your past, there's always an investment for whatever they have going on. When does the instructor typically give you that investment? At the beginning of the class or at the end of the class? It's always at the end. Here's why. They want to get you emotional and bought in. And at the very end, they're going to show you their investment. But then here's what they do at the end. It's real tricky. They take that investment at the very end, and what do they start doing with it? Start lowering it, discounting it, saying stupid things like today and today only, it's going to be half price. And then everybody gets really emotional and bought in. Let me let you know a tip right now. You do realize that investment, whatever it is, it's always half price. You do realize that, yes? It's a sales gimmick that we find cheesy and offensive. So here's what I'm going to do today, something completely refreshing. Here in about 5 to 10 minutes, I should make sure everybody gets settled in. I'll share with you our investment, attend our event, have access to all of our training, our sponsorship on your deals, partnership, what we actually do in the market. And when I show you that here in a few minutes, it's going to stay the same. We don't believe in cheesy games. What we believe in above anything else is a win-win philosophy. Tyler's all about energy, abundance. If we can help you get to where you're going to get, it's going to come back tenfold to us. That's how we built this massive portfolio, and our students also. So I'm going to do this different today for one reason. It's my last class of the week. How many of you in this room can appreciate we're just willing to be right up front and not play games? Can I see by the show of hands? Okay, I'm in the right room. Give me 5 to 10 minutes. So in the meantime, I have to figure out how far you've taken this. I've got some investors in here and I have a lot of beginners. So how many of you in this room have at least done some research or looked into investing into larger multifamily properties? Can I see by the show of hands? Oh, most of you. I love that. Okay. What are some of the obstacles that might prevent you from investing in these larger properties? Give me some ideas. Don't be shy. Just blurt them out. Money and capital. Okay. If this were Family Feud, money and capital is by far and away that top answer. It will take a lot of money. It will take a lot of capital. So I will cover that one first today, right out of the gates. So money, capital, credit, financing, all one answer, top answer. Anything else might stop you? Okay, so the numbers, what we're looking for, cap rates and evaluating, this is big stuff, okay? I'll cover a bunch of that here today, all right? Anything else that might stop you? Okay, what's behind it? Management. By the way, the first answer I got this week was fear. And that's a big answer, especially when we talk about these larger properties and the numbers we deal with. But fear really comes down to one thing, and that one thing is called lack of what? Knowledge, confidence, experience. It's why we start with this event first, and it's why we sponsor our students' deals. This is a really good start. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with that top answer. It is the big one. And I'm going to break it down, and then I will literally cover every other one that I heard. But we have to start with that top one. And that is money, capital, credit, financing. It will take a lot of money. It will take a lot of capital. Here's the good news. We have a huge portfolio. We never, ever use our own money. It's never based on our income, our credit, period end. There's two sources. I'll come right back to you. There's two sources we're going to go to raise money to buy these large properties. I'd like you to write these two sources down. Let's cover the money right up front and get all the numbers out in the open. My question you had. That's what we're going to talk about right now. So money and credit and capital, let's cover this right now. There's two sources we're going to go to raise money to buy these properties. The first source we're going to go to, number one, write down private investors. For those of you who know the lingo, this is the LP side, limited partners or syndication. Now, private investors or syndication are basically individuals just like yourselves who have money. And they're looking to invest that money passively in the multifamily space. Now, here's what we want to raise from the LP private investor side. Write this down. We want to raise 30 to 35% of the purchase price of that property from private investors. Here's what that 30 to 35% is going to cover. It's going to cover the down payment on the property for you, the closing costs on the property for you, and some other fees. And I will get deep into what those other fees are here today. So let me word it this way. Let's say we need $10 million to buy a small apartment complex. 3 to 3.5 million we're going to raise on the LP private investor side. Now, private investors are wanting to invest their money in these types of properties. First of all, because it's where money wants to be, recession-proof, but most importantly, they're looking for a return on what? On their money. So here's what we pay out on a typical deal. Write this down. We pay out 8% annual rate of return, preferred, meaning they get paid first, obviously from the rents. It's broken down into 2% per quarter we pay out. But also what our private investors get is they're going to get nice big ownership in that property. And they're going to participate in the equity growth as we force that property to go up in value. Now, we do things a little bit differently than a lot of multifamily investors. We are not typically into our properties for long-term cash flow. If you want long-term cash flow, we can definitely teach you long-term cash flow. Here's what we're doing right now in the current market. We're getting into the property. We're basically forcing that property to go up in value as much as we can. We're cashing out of that property, and we're 1031 exchange our money into another deal, 3 other deals, repeat, so forth and so on. So here's the typical time period we're actually holding on these properties. Write this down. We're typically into our properties anywhere from 2 to 5 years, and preferably closer to the 2-year mark than the 5-year mark. And the whole goal in that 2 to 5 year time period is for us to force that property to go up in value as much as we can. And I'll go over a detailed account of how we do that today. And at that event, it'll be the biggest section they train you on. Fire away.
So when you're talking about ownership by the private investors, so they're actually going to be the owners then?
I'll give you an ownership breakdown.
Percentage? Oh.
It's percentages. So it really is prorated on how much they invest in the property, and it's on the LP side.
Okay.
They can still depreciate, they can still do a lot of things, but it's the LP side, which means they're limited partners. They have 0 say on any direction on that property. They're owning it, they're part owners, but they're in it for passive returns.
Okay.
So here we go. So let's look at it this way. $10 million, 3.5. We're gonna raise from private investors. This is what we pay out, this is what we average. But that still leaves a lot of money left. We have to come up with to buy that property. That's a third. That's the down payment, the closing costs, and some other fees. So where would we go to get the next portion of the money, the $7 million we need to buy that property? Give me some ideas.
Seller finance.
Yeah, boy, if we can find that, it'd be great. Okay. The only problem with seller financing also is the rates are going to want, what they're going to want up front, different things like that. But I love that idea. Okay. Let's talk about traditional ways. Give me another. Okay, let's talk about banks. Banks is where we're going to go to get the next part of the money. Now, I'm sure some of you are going to stop me right there and say, hold on. You said this would have nothing to do with my income or my credit, and now you're bringing up banks, and they're all about that. Well, you're thinking traditionally, so let's cover this right now. If you've ever bought a property in your past, whether it's the home you live in or an investment property, traditionally, you're going to go to the bank to secure some money and financing to buy that property. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, right off the bat, the down payment and closing costs on that property, who typically has to come up with that money? You do, the buyer. The minimum down payment for an investment property, unless you're going to live in it, the minimum down payment is 15% down. You're more likely 20 to 30% down if you want a better rate. But when you go down to that bank, they're going to get a ton of info from you, and here's how. They're going to have you fill out a loan application. And in that loan application, here's just some of the info they're going to get. They're going to get your social security number, because they have to pull your credit. You have to meet a certain score. They're going to look at things like your debts compared to your income. They're going to want to see some employment history, and they will want to see some tax returns over the last little while. But there's a big catch-22 on that one. Here's the big catch-22 right here. Do I have anybody in the room who's currently self-employed? Can I see by the show? Half the room. You're self-employed for a reason. A lot of tax benefits for being self-employed and many other reasons. But here's the catch-22. You might be writing off a little bit too much on your taxes to actually qualify for the loan amount you need to buy that property, or even filing it all. So it's a big game you play right here. These are what's called recourse loans, meaning you, your money, your income, your credit, everything about you qualifies for that loan to buy that property. With larger multifamily properties, it's completely different. They're what's considered a non-recourse loan, meaning the bank is going to be looking at your income. They're not going to be looking at your credit. What is the bank specifically going to be looking at?
The property.
Not just the property, the cash flow and the performance of the property. The NOI, the cap rate. We're going to get this heavily here this morning. The cash flow and the performance on that property is what the bank specifically is going to be looking at. But hold on. I have to take a step back, okay? The bank will still want to know some things about you as an individual before they just give you all this money to invest. This is a lot of money they're entrusting you with, yes or no? Yeah. Tens of millions of dollars. So even though they're looking at the cash flow, that's the big thing, they're still going to ask some questions about who they're giving the money to. And they're pretty big questions. The first thing the bank is going to know about you before they just give you all this money to invest is number one, they want to know what is your net worth. So they're going to have you fill out something called a PFS. And all that stands for is a personal financial statement. Here's the kicker. Your net worth has to be equal to or greater than the loan amount you're going after. So if you need $7 million, that means your net worth has to be at least $7 million. And just so everybody is aware, your primary residence does not count as net worth to the bank. It's not liquid enough even if you own it. Any investment properties you have for my investors would count, primary does not. So that's the first thing, might be the easier of the two things. The second thing the bank wants to know about you before they just give you all this money to invest is number two, they want to know how experienced are you when it comes to investing these type of properties. So they're going to have you fill out something called an SREO. And all that stands for is a schedule of real estate owned. It lets them know how many doors you have, how many units, basically your real estate portfolio. So you take these two things. You have to have net worth, you have to have experience. This literally takes beginning investors, like a lot of you in this room, no matter how great that property you found is, no matter how well it's cash flowing and performing, it's typically going to boot you out of that opportunity before they have a chance to play this game. So there has to be a solution to secure this money to buy that property. There is a solution. The solution is this. We basically need to partner with somebody that will help us secure that money from the bank. Does anybody know what we call that individual? It is a general partner on that side. It's a partner on the general partner side, the GP side. There's an official term. Does anybody know the official term? It's okay. It can be silent, but most of the time they're more active. It's a co-signer or a guarantor per se, but there's an official term. The official term, write this down, is called a sponsor.
Is that you guys?
It's a partner with you. Did you say that? I couldn't hear it.
Is that you guys?
Yeah, well, we would love that. I'll come back to that. By the way, it's a partner of yours on the GP side. I'll break this all down for you here today. That comes in and they secure the money from the bank for you. So now let's talk about sponsors. Okay, why they're doing this, what's in it for them, and what we want out of this. So here we go. The sponsor typically puts up the earnest money on the property. That's not a big deal though. They get that back at closing. It's in there real quick. The big thing the sponsor wants for doing this is what? They want a piece of that pie. They want ownership, which will give them cash flow and equity growth. So write this down. A typical sponsor is going to take anywhere from 5 to 10% ownership into that property for securing that money. And I'll give you a whole ownership breakdown here today. There's plenty of meat on this bone. And the 5 to 10% fluctuates on how involved they are. If they're coming in heavily with all their experience and helping from the very beginning, they're going to take more like 10%. If they're more silent and all they're doing is securing the money, that's more like 5%. So I always have people say, Steve, why would a sponsor be willing to put their neck on the line? That's what they're doing here to the bank. Why are they doing this? What's in it for them? What's in it for them? 5 to 10% ownership in an already performing property. They're not putting a bunch of money into the deal. All they're doing is securing the financing. If we're doing that, they're getting a nice piece of that pie. For them, it's a great passive way to invest. Yes or no? Yeah. Incredible. So then I always have people say, okay, I grasp that. Here's my next question then. Where would I find one of these mythical sponsors? Any ideas? We would love that. You can go to LinkedIn. You can go to social media platforms. They're out there. But I'm going to throw this out there because I'm sure a lot of you guys this already. Do you think it might be possible that maybe we at Multifamily Mindset would love to sponsor some of your deals? Yes or no? It's one of the main reasons Tyler invites you to this room here today. It's one of the main reasons we're willing to train you on all of our strategies and really give you all of our experience with the rates we get in the market right now. We would love to carve 5 to 10% ownership. In fact, let me just be blunt. 10% ownership into all of your properties. Now, that being said, okay, please don't come to our event and say, hey, Steve said they're going to sponsor every one of my deals. We sponsor a high percentage of our students' deals. We want to sponsor as many as we can. We're carving ownership. I'll come back to you. The main reason we don't cover everybody's deals, we have so much deal flow coming to us from our students right now that we don't even have the bandwidth the banks need to cover everybody's deals. So here's the good news. If we don't sponsor your deal, that's okay. We're going to be introducing you to sponsors. If you're not aware already, I think I said this once already, this is a big relationship-based business, is what it truly is. Now, we'll do the introductions to sponsors. It's still up to you to present them your property, create that relationship. And I only say that for one reason. Do you think sponsors sponsor more the deal or the relationship? It's relationship-based business. Okay, we sponsor a huge amount of our students' deals, more than half. And if it's a great relationship, we'll continue to sponsor as many as we can. If it's a tough relationship with Tyler, it's almost always a one and done thing. Here's the ultimate goal for us. The ultimate goal for us out of all of this is to train you, educate you, sponsor a few of your deals, carve that ownership. You start building SREO, you start building net worth. Pretty soon on a property, you're not going to need a sponsor. You'll have everything the bank needs. You'll keep that 5 to 10% ownership. That's big. And at that point in time, if you want, here's what we can do then. We could then pay you forward if you want. We have many students that sat in class just like you're sitting in right now that now sponsor other students' deals. It's a beautiful relationship-based business. Fire away.
How many students do you have?
Thousands. In Aloha 1 and Aloha 2 alone, if we want to classify those as students,
Just the total number.
2,000 to 3,000. Okay.
3,000? How many do you sponsor?
Over half. Okay. So here's the only reason we can't. It's the bandwidth. 1,500, I'd say, probably even more. So my whole point is this: our bandwidth, just because once we sponsor a deal, it carves up a little of our bandwidth. Now we're constantly adding more doors and more net worth and more all of this. Now, what we can't sponsor, we throw out to our network, and that's a huge thing. So a high percentage of our students' deals get sponsored. It's why we're in this room here today. So my whole point is this: money will be needed. It's a lot of money. But the best news, it's never based on your income. It's never based on your credit. You don't have to bring a bunch of money to the table. I will still have somebody then come up and say, how much money do I have to bring to the table? You have to bring any if you don't want to. You can. If you bring money to the table, all we'll do is syndicate less. You'll keep more GP ownership, but you don't have to. So I bring this up at the beginning for one reason. How many of you are relieved to know in the first couple minutes that your personal income and personal credit are basically irrelevant when it comes to investing in these larger properties? Can I see by the show of hands? It's a big thing. Fire away.
You said in this strategy you're going after underperforming properties.
B's and C's.
But everything's based on the banks looking, the sponsors looking at
We're very
overperforming properties.
I'll give you our whole recipe. I'll show you exactly what we look for today. Occupy between 60 and 90%. So it's still showing what we want. B's and C's, are you familiar with the categories?
Yes.
Okay, so B's and C's, 60 to 90% occupied. We have a very structured way of doing things, and that's why we have such high success. I'll come back to that. I'll give you a whole recipe here today. So this is the first answer I get. Now let's go on to all the other answers I get all the time. Another answer I get that might stop people investing in these type of properties is number 2, I'll get people saying, Steve, I don't know if I want to be a landlord. Well, guess what? Neither do we. We're not in the landlord business, as crazy as that might sound. We use property management on every single one of our units. In fact, we use 2 very large property management companies, and we swap those out quite frequently too. And we use 2, and here's why. We want them competing against each other at all times, keeping pricing very low, keeping our performance very high. We will be introducing you to property management companies all over the country. Wherever you invest, use whoever you'd like. We'll just show you who's ready to battle for that business, get that pricing down. You are not in the landlord business, as crazy as that might sound, okay? And another thing I get is, Steve, what's even a good deal? The underwriting process. Where should I invest? And what are the numbers I'm looking for? Okay, today I'll cover cap rates, cash on cash, debt coverage we look for. I'll even get into markets we invest in, and then also I'll even get into how we find these properties. We found out it's not the money that stops most people investing in these properties. It's not the numbers or anything like that. You know what really stops most people? It's right here. It's the mindset. It's the fear. It's the combination of the two. We have students leave our events and they come across amazing properties with every number we want to see hit. They will take that property and they will analyze and analyze and analyze until they are flat out paralyzed. Does that make sense? And by the time they're finally comfortable with all the numbers, they come back to that deal. What's happened to that property? Multifamily is the hottest business on the planet right now. Things move really quick, okay? It's still real estate, it's still action-based, but I'll cover numbers, I'll cover underwriting, I'll cover much of that here today. And then also another thing I get is, Steve, how much time is this gonna take? I'm a pretty busy individual, I own a business. I have a career, I have a 9 to 5, okay? Most of our students start off with businesses, careers, and 9 to 5s, but I cannot look you in the eye and tell you this will not take time. Anything of worth or value takes time. Now, the best news, whatever time you put into it, you're putting into your own portfolio on the hottest business on the planet. And number 2, in multifamily, you have partners that help on the time, but time will be involved. Anybody tells you different is lying. And most of our students off like you, business, careers, 9 to 5s. And then the last thing I get a lot of is, Steve, I don't know if I can afford to be trained, whether it's the money or take the time. I'll throw that back at you. You can't afford not to know what you're doing. I would love to tell all of you just to go to YouTube and watch videos on multifamily investing or Google it. The odds of your success are slim to none. We highly encourage you to get trained in this business. It's amazing. And then attack the business. So let's talk about the business. This is who invited you here today. This is Tyler Devereaux, one of the main owners and co-founders of Multifamily Mindset. Been doing this a long time. Portfolio-wise, that number right there is actually a lot bigger than that right now. But that number is constantly changing. And here's why that number is always fluctuating. We're into our properties 2 to 5 years. So we might be cashing out of 1 or 2 large properties and acquiring 3 or 4 more. In fact, about 6 weeks ago, there's a big closing on a big unit count in Georgia. So that number is constantly going like this. This number right here is about double that we control in the market. Multiple U.S. markets we invest in, but we do not invest where he lives. He lives full-time in Maui, we don't invest in Hawaii because of the pricing and the cap rates. But let me ask this, do you have to live where you invest, yes or no? It's a numbers-based business, we don't. Here's what we look for. When we invest into a market, biggest thing, wherever we invest, we want to make sure that area will experience what? Growth. In fact, they will do a whole trading just on this alone. So let me have you write down the terminology of what they're called. Write down emerging markets. Emerging markets. An emerging market is just a state or a market to where more people are moving in than moving out. And projections are continuing that way. So let's just have some fun. What would you consider an emerging market in a state or market where more people are moving in than moving out?
Arizona.
It's in the top 5 or 7, okay? It's one of our top markets, okay? We'll get into that. Number 1 and number 2 are where?
Arizona.
Florida and Texas. They flip-flop back and forth. Florida and Texas are number 1 and number 2. In fact, we have 2 headquarters, one in Maui and a large one in Orlando, Florida. Even though most of the owners and top trainers, we're all West Coast based. But we have a big headquarters in Orlando. We invest heavily in both Florida and Texas. Our 2 best markets over the last 2 to 3 years have been both North and South Carolina. They've been absolutely exceptional to us. So I'll go over our list in no particular order. Florida, Texas, both Carolinas, Tennessee, Georgia. 2 brand new emerging markets just popping off right now with incredible numbers. Arkansas and Oklahoma. It's like Texas 5 to 7 years ago. And then if we come West Coast, Arizona is in our top 7. We've invested heavily here, okay? It's a great market. And I'll get deeper into that here in a second. But let's go to the flip side. What would you consider a non-emerging market, I mean a state or market where more people are moving out than moving in?
California.
I'm from SoCal, okay? It is by far and away number 1. You're an emerging market, why? Because of all the Californians moving out, okay? So, and same with Texas. So California is number 1, New York is number 2, and then the whole Northeast just follows that. New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. By the way, the middle of the country, Illinois, we stay completely away from. And it's not just are more people moving out than moving in. There's many other factors that are in play. As investors, we want the path of least resistance. Meaning some of those non-emerging markets have laws that hinder us as investors, like rent control. Are you familiar with rent control? We can't even get rent up to the market average. Or we want to make sure something crazy happens in the world, like a pandemic, that life continues. Our investors entrust us with hundreds of millions of dollars. It is our job to put that money to work responsibly in emerging markets. So here's what they're going to do. They will start very local here in the greater Tucson area. Growth happens like this. They'll show you pockets, what to identify. It's a great market. But if you are open to it, wow. We can show you some markets across this country with incredible growth in cap rates right now. You don't have to live where you invest. We don't. So it's going to be a big section on that. But they'll start here locally. It's a great market. So let's get back to Tyler. He loves to give back. No formal education. His education to this date is a high school diploma. And I only bring that up for one reason. Getting a college degree in today's world, does that guarantee you success, yes or no? Most people don't even work in the field they got their degree in anyway. You realize that, yes? It's all about the niche, whatever that niche is. Our niche is right there. This is all we do. It's all our students do. We excel at this. And then also changing thousands of lives through education, specifically that 3-day event. And then a leader in mindset. Okay, day one, section one. The first thing they're going to do at that 3-day event. They start off with a mindset training you have to have as the investor coming into these larger properties and the numbers we deal with. That mindset to us, it's the difference maker. So this is our company. This is what we do. But I promise you we get to this point. I said give me 5 to 10 minutes. I bet it's been more like 15 to 20. I get going, okay? There is an investment to attend our event. Have access to our training, our sponsorship, our partnership, what we do in the actual market. I promise you I do this up front. So I'd like you to write this in your notes if you would real quick. And by the way, the ultimate goal coming out of this is for us to do deals. That's why we're here. So let me have you write this down. It is a one-time investment. You have access to 3 days of multifamily training, our sponsorship, partnership strategies, everything to do in the market. That one-time investment, write this down, $1,497. Put that in your notes. Next to that investment, I'd like you to write down the number 2, and here's why. That is included for you and one additional investment partner. Investment partner, business partner, somebody you plan on investing with. Most people do this as a partnership. We highly encourage that. You don't have to. We encourage that. Here's our biggest thing on your partner. It just has to be somebody you know and trust. They're literally going to receive from us everything you receive. Split it, go together. Now that is the investment. It's not going to change. We will provide some heavy incentives here today and make this a win-win. But I have one quick question I absolutely love to ask. And by the way, there's not a wrong answer to this question. So everybody please participate. That investment up there, $1,500, let's just call it the way it is, to attend 3 days of multifamily training, have access to our strategies, our sponsorship on deals, partnership, what we actually do in the market. Is that investment a lot of money? Yes or no?
Yes and no. Depends on the person, but not
Depends on
really.
the information you get.
Not for the information.
Did everybody get a chance? I truly want to know. I was very sincere in asking. There's not a wrong answer to that question. That's your answer. I can't give you that answer. Most of you, high 90% when I asked that, said no or went like this. Some of you said yes or depends and went like this. And a lot of you literally just stared at me and kind of went like this. And that's okay also, okay? Most of you said no or went like this. All that tells me is you're looking at this through the eyes of an investor. Let me explain. I have been teaching classes like this for 25 plus years in this country with some really big hitters in this game. Grant Cardone for 2 years, on stage with them multiple times in front of millions and millions. I've been doing this a long time. Here's what I learned about our country years ago. Our country is horrible at teaching its citizens money management. Yes or no? Yes. Let me prove this. Is this a country full of consumers or investors? Consumers to a high degree. You have been trained and groomed as a consumer from the day you were born, whether you like it or not. And as a consumer with that mindset, grooming and training, consumers only focus on one thing. And that one thing is right there, cost. And as soon as that overwhelms them, they shut down. It'll happen in this room here today if it hasn't already happened. And guess what? I'm okay with that. Most of you said no or went like this. All that tells me is you're looking at this through the eyes of an investor, because as an investor, we don't focus on cost. It'll be a factor, don't get me wrong. We don't focus on it. What we focus on is one thing only. Return on what? Investment, the value. What am I gonna get? When do I get it back? How many times over? So here's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna make this morning the easiest class you've ever attended. Here's what I mean by that. The last thing we will do here today, and I'm gonna look everybody in the eyes as I say this, the very last thing we will do here today is try to hard sell you or talk you into $1,500. This will not be a high pressure sales day. As a company, we don't believe in that. In fact, my own personal view, that being too blunt, if that's a lot of money, good luck investing in large multifamily properties. So I'll come back to you guys. Here's what I will do today. I'm gonna show you the value, the returns, what our students do in the market, how big this can get, how many times over, and what we bring to the table. And some of you came here today already knowing you're gonna invest in multifamily properties. And when you see that value at any point in time here today, you can get up, go to the back, fill out a registration form, pay your investment, reserve 2 seats. And by the way, this is my last class of the week. We only have one ballroom with classroom style. There's only so many tables and so many chairs. And at that point in time, our company literally will do everything in our power to help you succeed. It's why we're in this room here today. But on the flip side, if you don't see that value, and you don't see my investment in that, you're gonna make a lot more than that, then I've got the easiest suggestion of all. Don't attend our 3-day event. Don't use this as a sponsor. I make this really easy. Here's the way I look at this. I love your decision. I leave it respect completely up to you. I'm just gonna show you the value. But whatever your decision is, regardless if it's you're gonna go out there and invest and we're gonna help you or not, we can all still be friends. Yes? The enthusiasm in this room is overwhelming.
Yeah.
We can still be friends, yes? Yes. We need some coffee in your stack. Here's the way I look at this. By investing that, gaining us as your sponsor, you go out there, you complete one multifamily deal with our help. Is that worth that investment, yes or no? When I show you the actual numbers and what our students do in the market, it'll blow you away. In fact, I'll come right back to you guys. I'm gonna do something right now I typically never do. That investment to our company right there is not a lot of money. With the portfolio we have and what we do in the market, that investment is just really there for one purpose, to separate the serious from the curious. And it does a damn good job at that, okay? We only have one event we're holding in the entire state of Arizona. By the way, this one is in the greater Phoenix area. It's in Chandler. Here's the good news. The very last day of the event, only the students here in Tucson, the ones in Casa Grande and where we have Sierra Vista, only those students on the last day, Tyler's gonna cut you back a $300 check to help cover your gas, your hotel, whatever. He calls it a travel certificate, so realize it's a little dry. But anyways, we have one event in the entire Arizona area. We do one event because we want the networking opportunities to really expand. You're only gonna see so many people there. He keeps it about 80 to 90 investors. He doesn't care about quantity. By the time next week's over, every seat will be filled with a waiting list. Here's what we do, and here's how powerful and confident we are. After attending that event, with our help or even without our help, you go out there, you complete one multifamily deal, we're gonna give you your investment back in full in writing. That's not the big deal to us. The big deal to us is this: if we can train you, educate you, sponsor a few of your deals, carve that ownership, give you your full investment back, we're banking and hoping your one deal quickly escalates into what? Portfolios for everybody involved, including us. Tyler's all about energy and abundance. You succeed, we succeed. It's his big thing. So let's start focusing on the returns. What you get when you get back, how many times over? I saw a couple hands. Was there? Okay, fire away.
So are you saying that you're so confident that your sales package and the information that you provide and being able to do one deal that you return?
We return your investment in full.
So if you're so confident, why don't you?
It's the effort you're going to put into it. That's what we can't guarantee. If you give something away for free, you're basically going to get nothing out of it. And plus, we only have so many tables and so many chairs. Put a little skin in the game, we'll give it to you back. Tyler loves action. That's all he cares about. And I'll make it easy. When I say just do one deal, you can even invest in one of our 2 large funds in our properties. He gives you your money back. So all he cares about is investors willing to take action. But what we can't guarantee is what your effort's going to be out of this. Fire away.
You're not gonna make money off this. This is nothing.
Just the
That-
ballroom and the
that-
3 days and the staff we bring in,
But
it's
the
gets
quality
eaten
of
up quick.
training that you put into one person here, these people go out there.
Right,
They're gonna make the money
that's
off
our
the-
whole goal.
You guys get to sponsor a deal. That's where you guys are gonna really make your money.
That's our whole goal. And then pay, and the way Tyler looks at it, okay, now I'll get really deep. Tyler holds an event once a year somewhere in this country. It's called Peak Partnership. Did everybody see the video that played before I got up here? A big portion of that's Peak. Peak Partnership is just a big networking event Tyler holds once a year somewhere in this country. This year it was in Orlando. 2,000 students, just like yourselves, came to that event. He doesn't really charge for this. It's a huge thing. He brings in big keynote speakers. David Goggins was there, a bunch of other big names. All it is a big, massive networking event. And all he does is patch you to you to you to help do deals and just like that. So even if you're not using us, he feels that abundance is the key. And it will come back to us tenfold somehow. So it's a big thing to him. So let's start focusing on the returns. There's 3 ways you're gonna make money on these properties. I'd like you to write these 3 ways down. Let's really start dissecting this as investors in the room. The first way you're gonna make money with these large properties is number 1, write down cash flow. This one's obvious. Everybody loves cash flow. This is money coming in every single month, obviously from the rents. It's passive income. In fact, let me just ask this. How many of you came here today wanting to learn how to make money with multifamily properties, and cash flow is the number 1 reason or factor why? Can I see by the show of hands? Most of you. I love that. But here's the best part. Out of the 3 ways to make money on these large properties, cash flow at the beginning is by far and away the smallest. It's consistent. It will grow as it matures, but it's the smallest at the beginning, so buckle up. The second way to make money on these properties is by far and away the biggest, which is number 2, write down equity growth. Equity growth. Now, as I told you, we're typically into our properties 2 to 5 years. And the whole goal in that 2 to 5 year time period is for us to force that property to go up in value as much as we can. So I always get people stop me right there, and then they'll say, I'm not familiar with how you force a property to go up in value. Explain that. Okay, here we go. If you've ever bought a property in your past, whether it's the home you live in or an investment property, as the investor on that property, you want to know what that property is worth in the current market. Yes or no? So here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna hire an appraiser, do an appraisal on that property. The bank will insist on this anyway. And one of the biggest factors to figure out what that property is worth in the current market is that appraiser is going to go out and pull what? Comps, comparables of other properties like that property that's sold in that current market. It is called the comp system. It's been on for years and years and years. But here's what the comp system means. That property you're looking at buying right there, or that property you own, its value is directly related to the market, the economy, and what's happened in that specific moment. Yes or no?
Yes.
Which means, just like the last 13, 14 years, that real estate market climbs and goes like this, naturally, your value is going to climb and go like this. But hold on, we're sitting here on this cliff right now, 2008, 2009. That real estate market crashes and goes like this, what's going to happen to your value? You're along for the ride. You basically have zero control. You don't have zero control. Here's your little control in any market. You can update your kitchen, you can add some square footage or a bedroom, you'll move the needle a little bit, you're still gonna be capped out. Comps control that. With larger multifamily properties, this side, completely different. There's not a comp system in place for a 40 unit, 50 unit, 100 unit, 500 unit property. So how do we gauge the value of one of these large properties? What is the biggest indicator we go off of?
Cash flow.
Okay, cash flow, NOI, cap rates, these are beautiful numbers. Okay, the cash flow and the performance on that property dictates the value. So here's your light bulb moment, sitting here in this room. If we as investors know going into the property, we can increase that cash flow by decreasing some costs, increasing occupancy, or moving rent up in this direction, we can force that property to appreciate. In fact, I'd like everybody to write that in your notes. Write down forced appreciation right there. Forced appreciation. When we invest into a property, we don't hope the market goes up. We don't hope the economy performs. Absolutely not. When we come into a property, we know going in. We target specific properties, B's and C's, certain criteria. Here in 20 minutes, I will literally give you our whole recipe. At that 3-day event, Tyler Devereaux is the greatest forced appreciation investor in this entire country. This will flat out blow you away. We force them to go up in value. By the way, I'll come back to you. I get very passionate about this, and here's why. What other opportunity do you have as an investor that you can invest your time, your resources, your money into something, and you get to choose the value? Okay, let me ask you this. Can you as an investor invest your money into the stock market and force the market to go up? Yes or no? Well, not unless you're in Congress, right? They do it every damn day, both sides, okay? Or GameStop, one of the two, okay? So, it's true. You invest your money in the stock market, you hope it goes up, or you bet against it, you hope it goes down. Either way, you're along for the ride. You can't invest your money into crypto and force it to go up. You can't invest your money into a single family home, a duplex, a fourplex, a 10plex, and force the value. Comps control that. If they can pull comps, they'll pull comps and go recourse loan. The only opportunity you have is right there. We target specific properties, fix small problems, force them to go up in value. Quickest way to true wealth in real estate. Fire away.
If you're targeting properties that are already basically successful,
They're B's and C's, which means they're a little older. We'll give them this here today.
why are they looking for investors?
Here's what they're doing. There's a lot of baby boomers cashing them out right now. I'll show you exactly what we target and who we target and why we have so much success on that. It's a great question though. It's attracting deals, and we do a whole section just on that alone too. So now the big thing is a lot of these baby boomers are at that age where they don't want to put in the budget to get it performing higher, and they're getting the age they're looking to cash it out. It's what we really target heavily. I'll cover it here in a second. Okay, fire away.
We're going to go to an overview of how do you make investigation for the underperforming properties.
We're going to give you a computer program we use that runs all the numbers for you. Kind of gives you projections, everything. Stick with me on that, okay? So let's do this. That's the second way to make money on these properties. Now let's move on to the third way, okay? The third way to make money on these properties is number 3, write down acquisition fees. This one's a lot of fun. An acquisition fee is an upfront fee or commission that is paid to you upfront at closing. It's rewarding you for your time, work, and effort in finding that property and putting this deal together. It's not a finder's fee. You're not walking away from the property. You're still the main owner. It just rewards you for all of that work. So let's put some numbers behind this. Next, acquisition fees. I'd like you to write down 3 to 5% of the purchase price paid to you up front at closing. So let me give you an idea of how this works. Let's say we come across a small apartment complex somewhere here in the area. And when I say small, let's say it's a $3 million property, teeny. If all you do is write in a 3% acquisition fee, 3% of $3 million, that's 90 grand paid to you up front at closing. Now the one thing we will make sure is you always write in a 5% acquisition fee. Our company, we only write in a 5% acquisition fee, and here's why. The difference in 3% and 5%, is that a lot of money, yes or no? By the way, how many of you in this room would love that $150,000 acquisition fee in, let's say, a 60-day time period? Can I see by the show of hands? I say 60 days, and here's why. Once that property is under contract, that is the typical time period to get that deal to closing. That's when you get paid these acquisition fees. So let's get into how big this can get, where this money's coming from. Before I do that though, I have to ask this. The average American right now, to come up with $150,000, how long would that take them?
45 years.
Okay, I get a default answer. The default answer I get all the time, people say 3 years. And they'll say 3 years, and here's why. That is the average salary in the country today. But there's a big flaw in saying 3 years. Here's the big flaw. All of that money goes to their daily living expenses, yes or no?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the average American, to come up with $150,000, you can almost say a lifetime, could you not?
Yeah.
Or at least years upon years. If you were to look into people's savings accounts right now across this country, or see how many people are truly living paycheck to paycheck with cost of living, inflation where it's at any income bracket. It would shock you, okay? This is an upfront commission paid to you at closing. So people always want to know, well, who's paying me this? Where's this money coming from? Let me break it down this way. The seller of the property pays the realtors and the brokers. That's where that money goes. Any money we get from the bank has to go to the property. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. So that leaves one player, and that one player is the private investors, the LP side. I said this from the very beginning. When we raise money from private investors, we're going to raise 30 to 35%. That's going to cover the down payment, the closing costs, and other fees. Those other fees are acquisition fees right there, and then also a CapEx budget to fix that property up and force that value. I'll get in that here in a second. So acquisition fees paid for by the private investors. This is all disclosed. They know this going into the deal. So then I always have people say, well, Steve, what if the private investors don't want to pay me a 5% acquisition fee? Well, I've got a really easy solution. What's that? Go to the next private investor. I'll be very blunt. On Aloha 1 and Aloha 2, those two big funds we have investors lining up to pay us a 5% acquisition fee. Why? Because they're making 8% preferred and a 38% windfall in 2 to 5 years. Did I not mention those numbers? By the way, we have two huge syndication funds. Did I mention this earlier? Aloha 1 and Aloha 2. We buy properties with all across this country. Aloha 1 and Aloha 2 are two massive funds we buy properties with all across this country. Over the last few years, those properties, or those two funds, have averaged 38% return on our investors' money. By the way, is that a good rate of return, yes or no? Incredible. So they make 8% per year, and when we cash the property out, their average is a 38% return on their money. So I'll make it easy. You put the two numbers together, they're averaging like 20 to 23% a year on their money total. So this is why they line up to pay us, they put money into our funds. They perform. They don't care about that acquisition fee. Let me show you how really big this can get. And you know what? I can show you a bunch of these. These are just some of the deals we've done the last little while. I can show you a bunch of these. And each one of these we got paid a 5% acquisition fee on. Start at the top. North Carolina, 415 unit apartment complex we bought. $26 million purchase price on that property. 5% acquisition fee paid us up front at closing. 224 units, Fort Worth, Texas. $23 million deal, 5% paid us up front at closing. 419 units, South Carolina, $34 million deal, 5% acquisition fee paid us up front at closing. Let's look at that bottom one. A $34 million deal in South Carolina and a 5% acquisition fee is paid us up front at closing. How much money is that? 1.7. A lot. $1.7 million paid to us up front at closing. We don't walk away from the deal. We're still the main owners. It just rewards us for our time, work, and effort, finding that deal, structuring it, putting it together. $1.7 million. How many of you in this room are flat out loving acquisition fees? Can I see by the show of hands? So this is why we get so passionate about this. One property, you're making money 3 different ways on. Show me anything in real estate like that. Number one, you're going to make money right up front. It's an acquisition fee paid to you at closing. Number two, you will make money on cash flow throughout the entire deal. That one will grow as it matures. But the biggest money of all comes at the end, 2 to 5 years. When we force that value high enough, we cash that property out, we take our money from this deal, roll into 3 other properties, repeat the same process. How many of you in this room would agree with me? Just the training alone on these 3 ways, let alone the networking, the sponsorship, and everything else, just the training alone, that is worth every bit of that investment to attend that 3-day event. Can I see by the show of hands? Now, I'm sure some of you are going, hold on, Steve. I think I'm out of my league here. You're talking about all these big numbers, millions and millions of dollars, 40 units and above, hundreds of units. I came here today thinking I was going to learn how to buy a duplex or a fourplex. And you're covering all these big numbers. I think I'm out of my depth. It's just a mindset. That's all it is. But let's cover the mindset right now because it's valid. Let's say you have an investment strategy, and your investment strategy is you're going to buy 1 duplex every single year. Solid. We would rather train and invest in what we do, and that's these larger properties. Let's say it's 100 plus units. Well, let's say you go the duplex route. Okay, you want to buy a duplex, right off the bat, it is a recourse loan, meaning the down payment closing costs on that duplex, who has to come up with that money? You do. The average price for a duplex here in the greater Tucson area, how much money is that?
400 for a crappy one, about
Okay.
600 for,
So let's go in the middle. Let's say 500 G's. Yes? Okay, $500,000 duplex. Your typical down payment is 20% down. So that's a $100,000 down payment. Seasoned sourced money out of your pocket. Then they're going to pull your credit. They're going to look at your income. They'll take the rents in consideration. But bottom line is, it's a recourse loan. It's all based on you. So you buy that duplex, you put 2 renters in there, and everything's going great. And all of a sudden, 1 month, something happens, and one of your 2 tenants just ups and moves out. That could definitely happen. You had better hope that that tenant right there is paying enough in rent every month to cover that entire mortgage. Because if they don't cover that mortgage, who'd have to step it up the plate? You would. Because if you didn't, what would happen? Foreclosure. There goes your credit. You're out of this game for a long time. It is a recourse loan. It is all tied to you. Now instead, I'll come back to you. Change that mindset. Come to our event and we'll train you to do what we've done. And that's invest in these larger properties. 0 of your money goes in this. 0 of your credit. The bank's looking at the cash flow and the performance, and the sponsor really takes on the risk, and the investors. You will be a part owner. I'll give you an ownership breakdown next. So you're a part owner, you have 100 units, and let's just say 1 month, 25 of your tenants just up and move out. That never happens, but let's just say it does. Okay, you still have 75 other tenants in there, paying monthly rent, going to your bank note, going to your investors. The economy of scale, just the sheer numbers we deal in, there's protection not alone. Fire away.
I was gonna say, obviously the multifamily is far more superior, but on the duplex example, if one of your tenants did move out, why don't you just arbitrage the empty unit?
You can. Nightly, okay. There's certain ones, it just depends. You could definitely come up with different solutions. I'm just giving you kind of a broad overall stroke of this, okay? So there's many things. And by the way, with rates where they're at, you're going into duplex, the odds of you covering that on nightly might be pretty tough. I don't know, just because rates where they're at, what that payment's going to be at right now. But yeah, you come up with different solutions. I'm just giving you kind of broad strokes on what it would be. I've owned a lot of duplexes in my life, okay? So they've been very profitable when the market goes up, but if the market crashes, what's happened to the pricing? You're going to crash. Many people are going to be upside down on their duplexes in the next 2 years. You watch. So 2008, 2009, so okay.
Can I add to what?
Yeah.
Because I have originally had investment properties. You don't know the damage that renter has done. When you go in and say, oh my God, yeah, it's not just cut and dry.
The nice, okay, it's a necessary evil, tenants. The worst part about being a landlord is what? Tenants, okay. So bottom line is this, we use property management. Okay, I'll get heavy into that, but I agree with you 100%. So let's do this. That's the risk. Now let's talk about the work. I asked this earlier. How many of you in this room in your past have either flipped a home or invested in single family homes? Can I see a lot of you? Okay, I did this for 20 some odd years. By the way, if you've never done that, you've at least watched HGTV over the last 20 years, yes? I'm always amazed what can happen in 30 minutes and 2 commercial breaks. Anyway, when you invest in single family homes, basically you're a one-person show. You fix it up yourself, you contract it out, it's literally all on you. Multifamily, completely different again. There's partners involved. Now, there's many ways to do this, but typically there's 4 partners involved. I'd like you to write these 4 partners down, and for those who know the lingo, this is now transitioning to the GP side, the general partners. This is where the real money is made, okay? Now, the first partner on this side is the main player. It's where most of our new students start when they leave that event. And that's number 1, write down the deal specialist. The deal specialist is the individual or individuals who find that property and put that deal together. It's the main player. This is where most of our new students start. And here's why they start here. It's what we train you to do. Our company, we're just a big, giant deal specialist. Grant Cardone, he's a mega giant deal specialist. It is the main player, find it, structure it, number 1. Second partner on the GP side is one we've already talked about, and that is the sponsor. And this is the role we would love to fill. Now, the ultimate goal is to eliminate that one eventually, but at the beginning you will need one, okay? The third one is one that terrifies most people, but I love it. And that is the money raiser or the capital raiser. But let me ask this. Could you be the deal specialist, meaning you found that property, you're putting this deal together, but also you raise the money and capital for your own deal, yes or no? Yes. Absolutely, we do. You can fill more than one role. It just depends on what you want to do. That one is by far and away my favorite one, and here's why. Money wants to make what? Money. When you can show investors returns like we can, I promise you, as soon as they cash out of one of your deals, the very next question they're going to ask you is what? Where's the next property? Where's the next deal? So we'll do a whole training just on that one alone. It's my favorite by far, but you can fill more than one role. Depends on what you want to do. And then we can network and resource it out. Depends on what you want to do. And then the very bottom one is great for somebody who doesn't want to ask for money. Good with numbers. It's called the asset manager. And it's just as it sounds. They manage the asset, which is the apartment complex. They work with the property management company. They're not the property management company. They kind of oversee the property management company. We use asset managers on all of our properties, and here's why. Once we get that deal to closing, we give up a little ownership on the GP side, and I mean a little. We hand it over to an asset management company. They manage the asset for us, and it frees us up to go do what?
Go get another deal.
What we're good at, okay? So there's so many different roles. Here's what we'll do. I always have people say, Steve, I think I want to start at that top one, but what if I need another partner? Where would I go to find one? You come to us. This is a big relationship-based business, but I will tell you the best place to start. And to me, this is by far and away the biggest value of what Tyler does. The best place to start is at that 3-day event. Let me explain. We have one event we're holding in the entire area. You're going to see about 70 to 90 investors there. Tyler doesn't care about points. It's in a classroom style, 4,000 square foot ballroom. Everybody who is there is vested to be there with one purpose on mind: multifamily investing. The networking we facilitate there is worth its weight in gold. Well, I'll give you an example. At the end of last year, we held a 3-day event in Houston, Texas. We had a lady come to that event who had never invested one time before. She left that event and found a property in the Houston area. It was a 156-unit apartment complex. With our backing, she put an offer. Her offer was accepted. She was very excited. But as soon as the excitement wore off, what do you think set in? Fear, panic, and doubt. That's human nature. So here's why we're here. All we did was set up a Zoom call and invited other people to attend that exact event with her in Houston to view her property and opportunity. After that Zoom call was over, 11 other partners came on board with her on the money side and the GP side to get that deal to closing. Now, am I telling you have to bring on 11 partners, yes or no? No. I'm just telling you her story, okay? You choose who you want to bring on. She chose to do that. Here's why. She wanted the fear gone. She wants as much help as possible, carve her a nice little ownership, move on to the next deal. So I bring this up for one reason. It's not like single family homes. You don't build this alone, you have partners, us being your biggest one. How many of you in this room can appreciate that? Can I see by the show of hands? It's a big thing. So let me do this. I promise you to do this real quick. I'm going to give you an ownership breakdown, so you kind of see what you would own and the whole meat on the bone here. So do me a favor, draw a big circle on a fresh piece of paper. This big circle I'm having you draw represents an LLC that owns an apartment complex. Let's say it's a 100-unit property. Now in that circle, I want you to draw a pie or a Pac-Man mouth that looks like that. And I just aged myself terribly right there. Now, in the big portion of the circle, I want you to write down LP. That stands for limited partners. This is your private investors. And underneath LP, write down 65 to 70%. Your private investors or limited partners are typically going to own 65 to 70% of that 100-unit apartment complex. Somebody tell me, why do they own the majority? They put up the money, okay? Now, as I mentioned over here, they're limited partners. They have zero say on what happens on this property. They are investing their money for passive returns, and they're looking at you and saying, make it rain. Now, in this pie, right here, I want you to write down GP. That stands for general partners. And underneath that, write down 30 to 35%. Now, there's many ways to do this, but this is a pretty standard breakdown. They'll go over other variations, but this is pretty standard. When you come across a great property after a 10-hour event, you're going to want 65 to 70% ownership into that property to private investors, syndication, to entice them to invest in this great property. You're going to keep and carve out for yourself, for finding that deal and putting this deal together, a 30 to 35% ownership. Now, at the beginning, you will need a sponsor, most of you. It's the role we would love to fill. If we are your sponsor, Tyler will take 10% on that GP side. So now we're your GP partner. But if we take 10% on that GP side, that means that your 30 to 35% just drop down to what? 20 to 25%. That is your typical ownership on a property like this. But let me just stop right there. If you are a 20 to 25% owner on a 100-unit apartment complex with zero of your own money involved, zero of your own credit involved, are you excited, yes or no? Yes. Extremely. Not just for the obvious reasons of cash flow and performance. Here's the main reason we get very excited about this. On a property of this size, 100 units, it's not uncommon at all in the next 2 to 5 years for us to force $4 to $6 million equity into a property of that size. If you're forcing $4 to $6 million into that property and you're a 20 to 25% owner, that's a 7-figure cash out in 2 to 5 years that you can take your money from this deal, and then here's what you'll do. You'll roll it into another property of yours, syndicate less, keep more GP ownership, and just repeat this process. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Now, they're going to do a whole plan and path at that 3-day event for long-term cash flow, which is the ultimate goal. But getting you to that level is what Tyler really wants to do. So this is a pretty standard ownership breakdown, but the key is you are the main owner. Now, one thing I do want to bring up on this, you will be by far and away the biggest owner on this property. And you might say, well, hold on, that LP side owns more than I own. Not really, and here's why. Let's say we need $10 million to do this deal. We're not going to go to one private investor for $10 million. There will be many investors coming into this LLC with their own LLCs. And their ownership is going to be prorated on how much money they invest in this property. Does that make sense? So if they're investing 300 grand into this property, they might own 1.5%, whatever the math turns out to be. You are a 20 to 25% owner. This is the power of multifamily investors. Fire away.
What kind of LLC entity do I have to be?
Each
Or
one,
change my LLC into?
you're not going to change. You're going to create another one. Everyone will have a brand new one on it. And not only that, this will be an LLC, and everybody who comes into will have an LLC. So you'll be a part owner of this one. So they do a whole section just on that alone. But each one will have a brand new one you'll create. We'll show you the states to do it in. We don't charge for this. Just where to get, you can get them cheap nowadays. Down in Nevada's great. Okay, we'll talk about this. It's a big section on there. So, by the way, quickly, yes, fire away. Here's the nice thing about multifamily. When you say properties, if you do 10 deals in 1 year, you're hitting a home run. I think Grant Cardone only does like 3 or 4. I bet we're about the 4 to 6 range. But I'll give a Joe a tip here. We don't look at anything under 200 doors anymore. It's just Tyler, the more doors, the better. Okay, so for us, now, the great thing about multifamily is, and I'm going to come back to you, when you said, well, if these properties are so great, why are so many people cashing out? There's not everybody's cashing them out, but there's a good section of them. You do one deal in a year, it's like doing 100 single-family homes, because it's one property with so many units and doors involved. So it's just that thinking bigger process, okay? It's what Tyler really thrives on. So, by the way, I love this quote right here. Okay, fire away, and then I got to move forward.
How long does it take the average deal to go?
We're going to push for 6 months hard. We know the numbers. Now, the deal once it's under contract is 60 days.
Right.
We can put in some extensions in the contract. You know, your first 30 days, do your diligence. Your next 30 days, make sure the money's lined up. We build in some extensions, we will, but it typically builds 60 days. We're going to push hard in writing for 6 months, okay? So last one, I got to move forward.
So you talked about ownership. So whose name is on the ownership, like actual deed or whatnot for this?
Okay, well, there'll be a lien against it from the bank, but it will be an LLC that you're a part owner on. So it is the actual LLC, the holding company is what's on that.
And who's the holding company?
It's the LLC that you're a partner on. And so you will be a part owner on. Everybody gets a fraction of that big one. It's just a part ownership on that. So it'll be like, well, I'll give it us, the multifamily mindset holding company, LLC. Just whatever name you create on that. So, but you'll be a part owner on that in the LLC. They'll do a whole breakdown in the structuring of deals. They literally spend a whole section on it. And your 1031 exchanges and a bunch of other things. So, by the way,
If I decide I want to get out of this apartment building. and
you're the main player, so you'll have that say. You'll meet with your other GP partners on that. If you're on the LP side, you have zero say when you're going to get out of that. So that's the GP side that makes that decision. But you've got to be unanimous with your GP side to get out of that, or they can buy you out. Now the problem with buying you out is, once we get that performance and NOI going up here, they're going to have to buy you out at a very elevated price, okay? So we'll kind of cover that next too, all right? So by the way, I love this quote. This comes from a book I think most of you should have read. It's on everybody's must-read list. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. This to me is all about manifestation. You think, you grow rich. And it's the consumer versus investor mindset. So successful people make decisions quickly and firmly, change them slowly if ever. The opposite, unsuccessful people make decisions slowly and change them often and quickly, and sometimes end up with a bunch of Mary Kay products in their garage.
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill didn't say that. We love successful people. We're in this room to make money with large properties. It's what we do. We don't believe in gimmicks. We believe heavily in actual investing. There are 4 incentives Tyler's going to give you here today to get started today, get to that event, and start actually investing in these properties. I'd like you to write these 4 incentives down. And the last one, the 4th one, I get very limited on. It's my last day in this area. It's based on seeding. My point is this: we know something you want to do, take action. But here we go. The first incentive Tyler gives you is one that I already mentioned, and that is this. That investment includes you and 1 additional investment partner. Split it, go together, good for 2, they get everything you get. That's the first one. The second incentive we give you, write down online quick start education. Tyler is brilliant. Here's what he knows. Everybody starts at a different level. You're going to see investors at that 3-day event with big portfolios. They always sign up because they want to network and have Tyler take them to a whole different level. And then you're going to see people at that event who've never invested one time before. And we love that. So what Tyler's done is he has put together an 8-course series online. These 8 courses are only for his students attending that 3-day event. You and your partner will get immediate access to these via username and password. He wants you to watch them prior to that event. It gets the basics out of the way, so when we get there, we literally just hit the ground running. The third incentive he gives you, write down Deal Analyzer. This is a computer program we give you that we use that will run all the numbers on the properties for you. There's no monthly subscription. We give it to you. I'll show you how that works there in a second. But the last one is the big one. And this is the one to me that makes this a huge win-win. I hinted at this one earlier, but here we go. This one they do on a first come, first serve. We only have so many tables and so many chairs. How many of you in this room would absolutely love to attend our event? Love to have access to our strategy, sponsorship, everything you do in the market, especially if that event and our program were absolutely free. Can I see by the show of hands? Okay, well that's not going to happen, those are your hands. Hold on. In a roundabout way for some of you that can. Send me 10 of these, and this is what I have left in the Tucson area. By the time I'm done, each one of these will be used. These 10 right here, I hinted at what these are. These are powerful. Let me explain what they are. You go to the back, get enrolled for our program. As an investor, you pay for that however you'd like. In exchange for that, they're going to hand you 1 of these 10. Inside of this is something called a tuition reimbursement certificate. In writing, here's the states. Let us train you on multifamily investing. After attending our event, with our help or even without our help, go out and complete 1 multifamily deal. And I'm going to make this easy. It can be any type of deal anywhere in this country. It literally can be a duplex, a fourplex. It can be 1% ownership in a 50-unit property. In fact, You can passively invest your money into one of our 2 large funds and our properties. All Tyler cares about, as I said earlier, is action. It's all he cares about. And as soon as you complete this one deal as incentive from us to you, our company will turn around and write you a check back instantly for your full tuition of $1,497. Meaning the event, the program, the sponsorship, strategies, everything we have after one deal to you, the investor, became absolutely what? Free. But it's a lot better than free. You completed that deal. You're making money on cash flow, equity growth, acquisition fees. Tyler does this for one reason. Success breeds success. We know the numbers. If we can help you complete one deal, give you it all back, we're literally banking and hoping your one deal turns into what? Portfolios for everybody involved, including us. It's why we're here. So here's my question. If we train you, educate you, sponsor your deals, you go out there and complete one multifamily deal, how many of you in this room would love it if we reimburse your tuition in full? Can I see by the show of hands? That's a lot more than the 10 they handed me here. If you would like one of these, all you have to do here today is take action. When you know this is something you want to do, highly encourage you, go to the back, secure one of these. By the time I'm done here on this Saturday morning, each one of these will have been used. So here's what we do. We train on this in a 6-step process. All for one thing, this deal. Now, I don't have time to cover all 6 today. That's what 3 days is doing. Here's what I can do in the small amount of time I've left. I can show you some of the ways we're going to train you to find great properties in emerging markets. I'm going to show you some of the numbers we want to see hit on the underwriting. But the biggest thing I'm going to do in the short time I've left is I'm going to show you how we force value into properties. We cash those out, we roll and repeat. So let's start first with some of the ways we're going to train you to find great properties in emerging markets. Now, they spend a lot of time on this. I'm going to cover 1 or 2 that I really like in the interest of time. So the first way I'd like you to write down in your notes is number 1, write down broker relationships. Broker relationships. Commercial brokers and realtors will be your best friend. Here's what we want from this relationship. We want their pocket listings. We want them sending us properties they know the owners are looking to cash out. By the way, brokers and realtors have a big incentive of getting those in front of actual investors. They make their money when the deal closes. They're looking for investors that have LP funds and sponsors lined up like our students. You're going to see brokers and realtors at that 3-day event. They always sign up, first of all, to network with all the investors there and to also work on their own GP portfolio. We show them how to double dip on both sides. It's really cool. So this is a relationship we're going to be letting you in on that we utilize all over the country to get these great pocket listings sent our way. Now, the second and third way go together. I'd like you to write down property management companies and motivated owners. Property management companies are a great resource we use to get properties all across this country. And here's why. They're in the trenches. They work with these owners and these properties every single day. They might know of a property they manage that the owners are looking to cash out. In fact, I'm going to come back to you in the back there. Baby boomers. You do realize that baby boomers hold the most wealth in the country, yes or no? That older generation. And a lot of their wealth is large real estate holdings, apartment complexes. They're getting that age, they're looking to cash it out, or even better, as I said earlier, at their age, they don't want to put in the money or budget into their properties going to performing the way they could be performing. It's exactly what we are looking for. So property management companies, insurance agents, these are all warm, direct-to-owner leads we're going to show you to capitalize on. Now, we'll do a whole bunch of other trainings on online resources we use, LoopNet, Zillow, what we look for in there. But most of the effective ways we have right now are direct-to-owner warm leads. Kind of our little background in doing this, we train you hard on that. Now let's talk about some of the numbers we want to see hit. When you come across a property that's for sale, the owner or the broker on that property is going to give you something called the offering memorandum. All an offering memorandum is a big brochure listing that's going to try to sell you on why you should buy their property. It's going to say things in there like it's in a good area, good school district, there's growth. Here's all we really care about. We want to go to the very end of that offering memorandum, and we want to look through their financials. And here's what we want to find. We want to find out what is their yearly revenue minus all of their expenses. And that will give us everything. The NOI. Somebody tell me, what does NOI stand for?
Net operating income.
This is everything. The net operating income. It is all the revenue they bring in on that property minus every expense that's going out of that property gives us the NOI. Now, here's why the NOI is so important. It's how we gauge the value. The net operating income dictates what the property is worth in the current market. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be very aggressive at the start. We have to have a starting point, and we'll negotiate off of this. So I'd like you to write this in your notes. We're going to take the NOI to begin with, and we're going to times it by 10. It's aggressive starting point to give us a rough idea of what that property is worth in the market. This is a 10 times evaluation or a 10 times capitalization rate. So to give you an idea of what I mean by this, let's say we come across an apartment complex that has a net operating income of $1 million every year. Every year, that property generated $1 million NOI. Well, that'll be basic math. We take that $1 million, we times it by 10, which means to us to start, that apartment complex is going to be roughly worth how much money? $10 million. Is everybody with me, yes or no? Yeah. Okay, now let me show you how this really works. And to do this, I'm going to show you a property we did. And the only reason I'm going to show you this one deal out of every deal we've ever done is this deal to me is very tangible. I truly believe any one of you in this room, with our training, sponsorship, and what we do in the market, could do a deal just like this. This is a deal we did a little while back in a small area of our country called Mooresville, North Carolina. It's a 40-unit apartment complex we invested in. That is it right there. Now, I'm sure some of you are going to look up here and go, boy, that is not what I thought it would look like. That almost looks like a motel, yes? I don't care what it looks like. What do we care about? The NOI, the performance. Can we force value into that property? And by the way, just so everybody's aware, we forced a ton of value into that 40-unit motel-looking property. So since I showed you what this one looks like, I got to do this real quick. There's 4 categories of properties that are in the market. I want you to write these 4 categories down. The first 2, I'm going to have you write down, we don't touch at all. It's the middle 2 we're going to be training you on. But the first category of properties in the market is number 1, write down A properties. An A property is a new build, a new construction, a newer complex. We don't typically go after A properties. We can train you on them. It just doesn't fit our model, and here's why. Everything on new construction is based on projections. We can't force value into projections. We can train you on it just doesn't fit our model. First category. Second category we completely stay away from is the very bottom one, write down D properties. And the big number on D is right there, under 50% occupancy. We have never had a property come close to losing money, and it's because we stay away from D properties. No matter how great of an opportunity it looks like, it's not worth the risk to our investors' money and to our reputation. So we stay away from them. It's the 2 middle ones we're going to train you on. So write down B and C properties. And you don't have to write down any of this because I'm going to break all this down individually. It's the exact same things we look for. The difference in a B and a C is the age, area, and condition. That's what's going to separate a B from a C. I'll give you an example. This little property in Mooresville, this is a C property. That's what this is. And the whole goal is take a C like that, just move it up 1 level, C plus, B minus, force a ton of value into it. So let's get into this property, the numbers, then I'll break all this down individually. We got the numbers on this 40-unit complex. We found out the yearly revenue on this property was $236,000 a year. The expenses on this little 40-unit complex, $131,000 a year. So we minus those 2 out, meant the NOI on this little property, $105,000 every year. So basic math, we take that 105, we times it by 10, which means to us, that little property is roughly worth how much money? A little over $1 million. $1,050,000 to be precise. So here's what we did. We made an offer direct to the owner of $1.1 million and invested in this little 40-unit complex. Now, I'm sure some of you went, there has to be more to it than that. There is, okay. There's 3 big numbers every investor focuses on. They're called the big 3. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it here, I just don't have the time. At the training, they're gonna slow these way down, but I need you aware of these 3 numbers. So I want you to write these 3 numbers down. The first number of the big 3 investors focus on is number 1, write down the cap rate. And that cap rate needs to be 6+%. Now, to give you an idea of how cap rates work in a very basic way, the higher the cap rate, the lower the price, cost, and performance on that property. The lower the cap rate, the higher the cost, price, and performance on that property. So here's what we're going to be training you to do. We're going to be training you to find 6+ caps, pockets right here, B's and C's, that fit our criteria. Invest in those, and then as soon as we become the new owners, we're going to get that property performing at its highest level. And here's what that will do. That will drive that cap rate down hard. Because if we get that cap rate low enough, when we go to sell that property, the value at that time will be NOI times 20, or even NOI times 30. But it has to start at least 6+%. First number of the big 3. Second number of the big 3, write down cash on cash. And that needs to be 9+%. This one covers your LP side, your investors. And then the last one is a ratio. It's called the debt coverage. And that ratio needs to be 1.4. And this one covers the banks. The bank wants to make sure for every dollar of expenses that property has, there's at least $1.40 in revenue coming to cover that dollar expense. Now, I went over those really quick. At the training, they slow them way down. They're the big 3. But here's the other reason I went over them real quick. One of the big incentives Tyler just gives you to get started here today is we're going to give you a computer program we use that runs these numbers for you. It's called the Deal Analyzer. We give it to you. There's no monthly subscription. It's plug and play. You literally put in the property's financials. It will automatically calculate for you the cap rate, the cash on cash, the debt coverage. It color codes each of the numbers to know if it's working or not. It will show you what to change in those numbers in case we want to negotiate, move things around. It will print directly out to your LOI and to your offer. I literally just did, in 30 seconds, we're going to put a whole section on it. Here's why I do it this way. How many of you in this room can appreciate, you don't have to be a math whiz, we give you a computer program that runs these numbers for you. Can I see by the show of hands? It's a big thing, okay? So let's get back to this property. Here we go. The whole goal on any property we invest in is simple. Increase the cash flow. Because we know for every dollar we bring in, minimum is to be worth 10 on the back end value. So there's 3 things that we look for in properties we're going to invest in. That we know by fixing just one of these 3 things, we will force that property to go up in value. I want you to write these 3 things down. This is the recipe we do on every one of our deals. This is what we're going to train you to do. The first thing we do is we look for a property out there with number 1, lower occupancy. Now, there's still safeguards in place. I mentioned this earlier. The safeguards are 60% occupied to 90% occupied. And all we want to do is come in with proper property management and take a 70% occupancy, move it up to 75%, or even higher. Immediately will create more NOI and cash flow force value. Second thing we look for in a property we're going to invest in is we want to find a property out there with some higher expenses we can lower quickly. Now here's what we can lower real fast. Property management fees. We're going to get other companies in there battling, get that pricing down, and then the energy costs on the individual units and the overall buildings. Now the best news about energy is the government has a lot of rebates and kickbacks we're going to show you how to use on your budget to lower those energy costs. And you want to lower those costs for obvious reasons. $1 saved is $1 what? Earned times 10 on the back end value. But the third one is the big one. And this is the one we are specifically going to be training you to find. which is lower rent being charged than the current market average. This one alone will force a ton of value into your properties. Now, I always have people say, Steve, why would a landlord not be charging current market rents? A lot of landlords are scared to raise rents. Somebody tell me why. People move out, occupancy, vacancy, their retention. They have been trained on occupancy their whole life, especially the older generation. I'll come back to you. It's everything to them. Or, as I mentioned earlier, they might feel their property's a little older and can't get market rents. That is a gold mine. You first, go ahead.
In general, you guys take Section 8 rent?
We can for longer term. You wouldn't want to do it on the forced depreciation. But on a long-term holding, absolutely. I have a lot of those, actually. Talk to me at the end. Go ahead.
What about renters who already have leases in place for a year?
That's great.
How do you raise their rent?
Well, it depends on the area. We can still raise rents, okay? We're not going to do it all at once. We can do it individually. We reposition units. There's ways around that. Just getting your averages up. So even if we have to raise some that we've repositioned and leave the rest there until that lease comes up. So I'll kind of go over that right now with you also. Fire away.
Do we depend on the property management company to enforce the value? Are they the ones responsible for
The asset manager, and they're making sure by the way, if you're in construction or if you're an actual contractor, you can reposition units and do everything I'm talking about, pay yourself for that. I'll cover that right now. So, but yeah, we oversee that. The GP side does. But the asset managers and the property management companies do the day-to-day stuff, okay? So here we go. Let me get back to this, okay? So bottom line is this. People always say, why would they not be charging market rents? Well, there's a lot of people scared to raise rents just because of retention, because of their occupancy. Now, we have a big rule. Here's our big rule, and this will help you out. The last thing we ever do, coming as the new owners, is come in and immediately raise the rents. We always provide value first. So we can actually outweigh that time a little bit as we're creating the value. And people always say, well, how do you provide value? Well, bottom line is we come with a budget. We do this for a very specific reason. Our tenants actually appreciate us as the new owners, as we're increasing the rent. So how do we provide value? We come with a budget. I told you in the very beginning, when we raise money from private investors, we're gonna raise 30 to 35%. That's gonna cover the down payment, the closing costs, and other fees. Those other fees are acquisition fees, paying you for finding the deal, putting it together, and then this one right here. Your CapEx budget or your capital improvement budget. This is money earmarked to make the improvements to that property to where we can eventually start increasing the rent. So let me word it this way. Let's say we need $10 million to buy that property. At the beginning, when we're raising money, we're gonna raise over $10 million. Does that make sense? This money needs to be there. The investors want this money there for this one purpose. So here we go. We do this on every one of our properties, and what we're going to train you to do. The first thing we do with this budget as the new owners is we take this money and we first focus on fixing up the common areas. Somebody tell me why the common areas?
Everybody sees it.
So everybody sees and feels. Now, when I say common areas, lighting around the complex, if anything's not functional like a swimming pool, anything is functional, playground areas, barbecue areas. We want our tenants to see and feel these improvements. Once this starts getting better, first of all, our occupancy usually ticks up, things are getting better, but most important, here's what happens. Subconsciously, our tenants realize things are getting better. Eventually, rent's gonna start doing what? It's gonna start going up. Now, tenants are used to rent going up anyway right now, just from inflation alone. We're still gonna make the improvements first. So the first thing we do, upgrade the common areas. Second thing we do with this budget, if any of the units are empty when we come as the new owners, or if anybody moves out of one of our units, we don't immediately re-rent that unit out. We pull that unit off the market for about 7 to 10 days, and we have a turnkey company come in and reposition that unit. Now, when I say reposition it, I just mean upgrade it. Luxury vinyl plank flooring, new countertops, new appliances, and we turn that into a premium unit. And as soon as we classify that as an upgraded premium unit, when we put it back in the rental market, what's going to happen? Now we're starting to move our averages without even touching the ones that are existing. We're just creeping this up, forcing value, NOI as we go along. Now there's many other ways we use on every one of our properties to increase the NOI that we'll train you on. Little things like covered paid parking. Amazon lockers are really big right now. They rent a locker every month, keeping their packages safe. Laundry facilities, vending, security if needed. Everything we do is designed for one purpose: increase the cash flow and the NOI force value. Let me explain how really powerful this is. Let's say after attending our event, you come across a 100-unit apartment complex. You do your research, you find out the average rent in that market's $14.25 a month. This landlord on average is only charging $13.25 a month. Now when you look at that, that's not a lot of money. That's just $100 a month in rent. But hold on, let's go through the domino effect. If all you do is provide a little value and eventually get that up to that $100 a month times 100 units, that's $10,000 more a month in NOI. You times that by the year, that's $120,000, but the bigger number's right here. You conservatively times that by 10, you are forcing $1.2 million value equity into that property, all from moving that rent up $100 a month. Now, what we're really going to train you to find is properties well below the market average. A C property, a C plus. The landlord doesn't think they get market average, that's a gold mine. Because if they're well below market average, now run your numbers. Let's say they're $300 below. Okay, make your improvements, get it up to that market average. Now we're talking $360,000 in NOI in a year, but the bigger number's right there. You're conservatively forcing $4 million, basically, equity value into that property. This is value add, forced appreciation. So let's get back to this. This little property, we bought it for $1.1 million. We did our research. We found out the average rent in Little Mooresville, North Carolina at that time was $900 a month. This landlord on average is only charging $550 a month. Okay, if the average is $900, he's only charging $550. What do you think his occupancy was on these 40 units? 100%. There was a gentleman who lived in one of those units since 1991. So here's what we did in a 2-year period of time. We're not doing this overnight. In 2 years, we did exactly what we're going to train you to do. We came with our budget, we fixed up common areas, playground areas, barbecue areas, upgraded some of the units. Not many people moved in and out on this one. But bottom line, after 2 years, we eventually got that rental average up to $800 a month in a 2-year span. Now, I always have people come up to me and say, why did you guys stop at 800? If the average is 900, why would you stop at 800? It was part of our exit strategy. Somebody tell me, why did we stop at 800?
Give somebody else.
Answer.
Give somebody else.
Here we go. These are awesome answers. By the way, it's twofold. The smaller answer is we want to keep our occupancy high. We want our tenants to know we're still below market average. The gentleman's in there since 91, still in there. Here's how we do that. We take an upgraded unit, go a little higher, leave him a little lower. It's the averages we care about. Does that make sense? But that's the smaller of the two answers. The bigger of the two answers is we want to leave a little meat on that bone to entice the next long-term investor. When you can advertise a 40-unit apartment complex for sale with upgraded units, upgraded common areas, high occupancy, and still $100 left of value add in the rent alone, that property is going to sell quick. It sold quick 2 years later. Here's what it sold for. We bought it for $1.1 million, sold it 2 years later for $2.6 million. We forced $1.5 million value equity into that 40-unit motel-looking property for 123% return on the original investment, 2 years. This is forced appreciation. We don't invest in hope. We come in and we force it. How many of you in this room are flat out loving forced appreciation? Can I see by the show of hands? And by the way, a small disclaimer for everybody in the room. That little property you're looking at right there, by far and away the smallest deal we've ever done. I can show you tens of millions of dollars. We force into much larger properties right here in Arizona, much bigger than that. There's nothing like forced appreciation. Now, I mentioned to you that capital raising is my favorite part, and here's what I mean by that. When you can show an investor 123% return on their money in 2 years, plus they made their 8% per year. That's coming regardless. They ain't show them 123% on the back end. I promise you, as soon as they cash out of that property, the first question they're going to ask you is what? Where's the next one? I just want a 1031 exchange and another deal of yours. And one whole section of the training will be on your 1031 exchanges, making sure you know exactly what you're doing, the structure of your LLCs and everything about that. And then, I shouldn't even mention this, then we're gonna show you to invest into a little property like that, depreciate that asset, and write everything off on your taxes. You're familiar with depreciation, aren't you? Cost segregation? Oh boy, this will blow you away. So then that investor is going to say, where's your next deal? Where's your next deal? And then here's what will happen. Their friends are going to call you randomly because money hangs out with money. And all of a sudden I'm getting a phone call, somebody randomly saying, help my friend do a deal. I've got $1 million in multifamily. Do you have a property I can invest into? And this is the progression we do on every single one of our units. This is forced depreciation. It's the quickest way to true wealth in real estate, period end. So there's 3 ways you make money on these properties. Upfront acquisition fee, cash flow, and then the big one, that equity growth. Now they'll train on this in a 6-step process, but there is a 7th step. And the 7th step is once we complete that deal, what's the 7th step? In fact, you'll have different properties at different stages going on simultaneously. That is what we're really training you to do. Now, I mentioned to you the dates of the training. It is the 30th, 31st, and the 1st. I didn't give you location. I think I mentioned it. They'll have this all printed up for you already. It's at a Marriott in Chandler, and they'll have this all printed up for you. Now, the benefit to you is, and only you and 2 other markets are getting this, on that last day, Tyler's going to cut you back a $300 check to help cover your gas, your expenses, hotel, whatever. He does that for anybody in this market going to that one. Now, it is a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They'll have this all printed up for you on tickets and everything you need. It begins at 8:30 a.m., gets done at 6, but the doors open at 8, and I always suggest get there early, and here's why. Start networking. That networking that we facilitate there will blow you away. It's worth its weight in gold. So I mentioned to you, by the way, the investment, but the big thing is the incentives. And the biggest incentive of all is right here. Let's help you do one deal, give you everything back. So here's what I like to do. We're basically done. I'm going to hand these back to Aaron. I think there's half of them left. If you have any questions on multifamily, I'll stay up here as long as you need. Just come talk to me informally. It's all I do every day. If you have any questions on different dates, if those 3 days don't work for you, they've got a list of those back there. Talk to them. They can show you other options. And then also, the last thing is I had somebody recently come and say, Steve, I desperately want to do all this, but for me today, that investment is a hurdle. If that's the case, talk to my associates. Tyler even has options on that. He wants to make this a win-win any way he can. So I've got 2 questions. We're basically done. Here's my first question. Throughout today's class, did everybody learn something here today? Okay, don't over-enthuse me for crying out loud. Number 2, did you enjoy the class? Yeah. If you did, we give us a hand. It makes us feel pretty good. So let's do this. How many of you in this room would love one of those tuition guarantee certificates to help you get started? Can I see by the show of hands? Okay, hop up, take action. It's our last class, last event. We're done. Any questions to help you get started? They'll do those first come, first serve. Let's help you get moving on those.